of the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the landing party on this stardate 2505.14. We're at episode 52 of the second season. Patterns of Force, written by John Meredith Lucas and directed by Vincent McEvity. Patterns of Force does for Nazis what a piece of the action did for gangsters. Once again, we have the crew having to undo a society corrupted by the very Federation itself. John Gill, a former professor of Captain Kirk at the Academy, decides to teach the Ecosians about the National Socialist Party extolling its virtues of order and efficiency. He just forgot the brutality and murder. The heavy-handed morality play is not without its virtues. A snappy opening to grab your attention. A nuclear missile is shot at the Enterprise from a planet that shouldn't have that technology. Some great bits of humor. Kirk putting on a German uniform and Spock telling him he will make a convincing Nazi. I particularly like that one. And McCoy beaming into a closet with an ill-fitting Nazi uniform. This was a tough episode to film, at least for some of the cast. Both Shatner and Nimoy were Jewish, as was guest star Valora Noland. The last-minute addition to her character wearing a swastika armband was not in the script description she agreed to. Her parents both fled Germany, and she was so upset at this decision that she ended up quitting acting. This story is too big for this small a budget. By the second act, everything seems small. Two planets at war, an attack force on the way, Nazism and its fervor and crowds all reduced to a couple small building sets. You never get the enormity of what is happening, which is a shame considering how much could have been done with this and deeper messages that could have resonated. Director McEvity is back for the first time in the second season, after some stellar work in the first. Miri, Balance of Terror, and Dagger of the Mind. Now that Joseph Pevney was gone, he would be one of the regular rotating directors with Mark Daniels, Ralph Sinensky, and John Meredith Lucas for the rest of the season. This episode marks the first appearance of Skip Holmeyer. He makes his Star Trek debut here as Melicon. And he would later return in the third season as Dr. Severin in the disastrous The Way to Eden. So there is your captain's log for today, my friend. Let's bring in the landing party. Anna was here, but her camera froze. So we're just wait for her to show up. Hey, guys.
Hello, Graham. Hello,
V. Gates.
Ron.
V. Gates.
Don't do that. They'll clip you.
Yeah.
I'm doing a Kirby. I'm
throwing my heart out to you. I'm throwing my heart out to you.
Kirby.
Yes, he's doing a Kirby hand.
You had a really good hand. You had a really good point, Graham, in the opening of this, saying that the story was too big for the episode, and it really was. And that's kind of, I like this episode because of the novelty, the Nazi thing and everything. And there's some really good stuff. I liked some of the humor. I thought some of the humor was probably not appropriate for the darkness of this story or what it should have been. And I felt like some of the stuff was underdeveloped. It was just like there was too much. Like Melicon was almost thrown in as an afterthought,
Right. Yeah.
And it's like what we could have got, if we could have got more of him to establish him as a real villain, that would have been helpful. But
we never actually saw him pulling the strings on Gill. We're just told this. where there's a lot of exposition that we're told. We're told that the Space Force is on its way, that the missiles are going, and all this other stuff, but we don't see jack. You know,
Ron.
Sounds like you guys got it all wrapped up.
Okay, well,
Okay,
let's give it our ratings and get out of here.
You made up
Did
your
you guys
mind.
notice? Did you guys notice that I think it was the first German guy that when Spock got his uniform with the helmet and everything, that guy was in Landru. He was on the street. He was one of the guys that's, howdy neighbor, how are you?
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Oh, that's who that was.
Yeah.
Now he's a Nazi.
He's a good actor because he plays a completely different sort of personality.
Yeah, but there's a cadence in his voice.
Yeah,
that, you know, it's kind of a whiny kind of thing. Hello, neighbor.
Yeah, there he was again. I was like,
Festival.
I actually like that scene because not in what the Return of the Archons, but in this one because the way when he tells Spock to take his helmet off. Is that the guy you're talking about?
no, the guy before that when they beat that guy up to take his helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Kirk hasn't got his Nazi outfit yet, so Kirk is like the Xeon peg that, and Kirk or Spock is ushering him along, and then the SS guy comes down the steps and they beat him up and take his uniform. So, but then it was later that guy goes, "Take off your helmet." And
I like that scene where he's a little bit suspicious, and the guy keeps asking you should see a doctor. You don't look well, Major. You know. And then I will attend to that, you know. And then all of a sudden he's like, take off your helmet, you know. It's like the suspense builds, you know, in that scene. And then when he takes it off, there's something about the way he takes it off, and he cocks his head like, okay, here it is. You know.
Okay, what now?
Well, I
just thought that is such a subtle and great thing that Nimoy does there.
Well, it happens in a few different episodes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, especially in Anna's favorite episode, The City on the Edge of Forever. I see you've noticed my friend. He's obviously Chinese.
Rice picker.
Rice picker, yeah. He's obviously Chinese. And,
yes.
The
unfortunate accident I had as a child.
Yeah.
The unfortunate accident. He's like trying to feed him.
I thought there is some good jokes in this, like the thing where he says you'll make an excellent Nazi. That was a nice little but there was also some, I thought, not inappropriate, but didn't really fit jokes, or a little too, like there was a couple responses where Spock was like, Spock's not that dumb. Why, like when he says, we'll make a human out of you yet, Spock, and he goes, I hope not. And you're like, come on.
I don't remember that line. When did he say that?
When they're they're pretending they're filming that chick that they're bringing in, right? And they have the film crew and the lights and everything. Yeah. And Spock goes, I understand why you humans enjoy gambling so much, because no matter how you lay out the odds, there's still this chance that it could go wrong or whatever. And Kirk goes, Spock, we're going to make a human out of you yet. And he goes, I hope not. It was just the dumbest response. And I was just kind of like, that was not very Spock.
If you were the script writer, Aaron, what would you have written?
I would have said, F you, Kirk, and given him the neck thing.
F you, Kirk.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe he's done it before, but you know,
he said stuff like that before. He would say something like, I see no reason to stand here and be insulted.
Right. That's what I was looking, but it was like his response was so dopey sounding, like he was a little kid for a minute. Boy, I hope. And I was like, that's not really Spock. And I don't know if that was, you know, how they told him to play it.
Was this the line? No reason to be insulting?
You know, he could have, but he didn't say that, but he could have said something like that rather than I hope not. I just didn't work for me. It felt like they were trying to make Spock look dumb for a minute. And it was just like, Spock's not dumb.
I don't think it was anything even that deep.
Yeah. Well, no, but that's how it came off to me. I mean, it just came off.
This was, again, one of those episodes where they, instead of having, you know, like a week to prep for it, They had like 4 days. So, and it shows around the edges, you know.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's some good stuff. This is one of those guilty pleasure episodes where
Yes.
I do enjoy it. The beginning is much better than what it ends up. You know, that first couple acts there, like the reveal that they're on this Nazi planet, because we don't know. And Kirk is down there, and that guy comes running around the corner, and he says, you know, "Hey, go hide, they're coming. And they hide, you know, and then you see the hobnail boots come down, and then the camera goes up as they're pulling them up, and then you see the swastika bands, you know.
Well, they
I thought
see
that was
all
very
that.
effective.
They see all that on the ship already.
No, they didn't.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, or where did they see it? And they were watching.
There was a view.
They're
screen.
watching. They see that on the big screen
right,
after the
And
fact.
it's all black and white footage of real Nazi Germany
Right.
Right.
until
Right.
it gets to the point where the girl is being honored for giving up her
Yeah.
dad.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was.
I mean, I agree with that 100%. I feel like it started out very engaging and rather intriguing, and I do like the beginning where, you know, Kirk says, you know, how the hell, you know, how could they have developed so close to Nazi Germany? Like, how could this even have happened?
Right.
Mhm.
It would be, you know, crazy and completely nuts to comprehend something like
Yeah.
that.
And it would have been. It
And
would have been
later,
nice.
it took itself. Sorry, it took itself a bit too not too seriously. It almost went in a different direction. I think after the second act, like you were saying, it just
Yeah.
felt different.
Well, once they are in the Nazi uniforms and they escape the jail and they go to the underground, right?
That's
Which is
exactly right.
obviously the the same set as Devil in the Dark.
I was looking for the pizza monster to come out of the rock and get me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I got this. It felt disjointed right there, like it wasn't even part of the same episode almost.
Yes, it starts that's where it starts to go astray and becomes a very small story.
Yeah, because
Um,
it becomes about this band of people living in that, you know, in the cave and everything. And it becomes less about, I don't know. It just didn't
Mhm.
seem fit too well, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when you look at the rise of the Third Reich and Nazi Germany, and you see these gigantic crowds and stuff, you know, and all this, you know, that was scary to the world in the 1930s, you know. And here, you know, we've got a couple people in a room, you know, doing their cheers, and you never get the sense that this entire planet is enveloped in this ideology, which it
Right.
was.
You know, it should have been more, there should have been more at stake, almost like the consequences of what was actually going on, to really emphasize what Nazi Germany really was. You know, other than
Right.
this, you know, and every time they showed the guy behind the microphone, they just had the microphone in front of his mouth like this, you know, and as opposed to shankly clankly, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know who that guy was behind the mic, right? That was Joe Biden.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say that it's a
Yeah.
completely, it's crazy how art imitates life.
I mean, I couldn't help but
Right,
watch this
me too.
episode and think about the last
yeah.
4 years. You know,
Yep.
a shadow
agree.
government running your country, and in this case, running
And
the
he's
world.
all drug. They go in there and he's all
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
It's just like what
it was
happened.
just like it.
And anybody
You
who denies it, they need, you know, they need their
John Gill was auto
brains.
penning.
Well, you know, you're right. When they get into that whole thing with John Gill's speech, the thing that's going on in the room, where they're trying to wake him up and trying to get him. I mean, it's a very intense moment, which is really, really good. But the whole, when they go inside that building, like you're talking about in the third act, it's like, it's almost like a stage play. Everything is so like in this small little area, and you can only fit like 12 people in there, and it lost its emotional impact. And plus, there was nobody in the streets. Did you notice that? There wasn't even like background people walking around. There was like nobody in the streets at all.
You're frozen again.
You just froze. You started talking, you froze.
Isn't the girl's name from Frozen Anna?
Yeah. Yes. Wow. We're on to something here, Ron. I think so.
You know, it's funny because the scene of them inside the jail cell reminded me of Bread and Circuses too.
Yes.
You know, it was. It almost seems like a throwaway scene in a way. I mean, they just get whipped to, you know, I love how Spock just sits there and takes the whipping, and the only thing that happens is his eyes blink a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
That was cool.
He's
so
a tough
in
dude, man.
control. Yeah, well, he's so in control of himself. Like it was pain.
Yeah.
Pain to him is just a sensation. It's not pain. It's just something he can focus on, and he's so strong-minded.
The idea of making a laser being held together by hand by the strap that was on the bed,
Yeah,
at just the right millimeters to create a laser beam.
3 millimeters or something.
Yeah, and you had a rounded thing. That piece of metal was as round as my glasses, and he's able to somehow cut into the skin and pull the transponder out of that.
I'm not going to question that. Who knows? Maybe it was rusty metal.
But
so now they're infected.
But when did McCoy put those in their arms? I don't remember that part. Was that in the beginning?
Yeah, he shot him with transponders, which makes you think, why did they ever do that before?
His hypo?
Yeah. And if it's that small, you can shoot it with a hypo. How are they holding it with their, you know what I mean? It would have been like almost microscopic.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because how big was that?
Kirk pulls it out and he's got it like this,
Yeah.
If it's anything like me, there you are. Now you're just so choppy right now. Did you put makeup on?
No, my internet's out. I'm on my phone right now.
Oh, you're still choppy, but we're glad you're here.
What's going on over there, Anna? I think you got raccoons are chewing into your Wi-Fi.
Is John Gill the governor of California now?
Yeah, he might be.
Apparently.
Hey, Anna, how about Edith Keeler? No. Didn't you see my message to you on Instagram?
No, I haven't been on Instagram. I honestly
go on your Instagram and your private message. I sent you a message. If you can. Nope.
Look what you chased her off again, Ron.
Way to go, Ron.
Yeah, way to go, Ron.
Yeah,
nice work.
Hey, Ron. It's a video of Joan Collins now, and she looks like an alien now.
Is she still alive?
Yeah, but she's old, and so obviously you can't. But man, it's like shocking to see.
Oh wow!
Eyes look like they're this far apart now, and just really
well, they always were far apart.
She had far apart eyes. She had far apart eyes. Remember that?
Davis eyes.
Billy Davis eyes.
So getting back to this episode.
Thank you, Aaron. You stay on pig.
Well, you know as well as I do that we're going to veer off it again soon. So.
Well, no, I want to get back to the things that I noticed having not seen this in a while. And again, I'm going to preface by saying I like this episode, but like we were talking about in the jail cell, right? There was a little bit too much, like what was Kirk said, I don't care if you hit a broadside of the barn, just hurry. And then Spock's like, why would I endeavor to shoot it? And you're like,
yeah.
I mean, that was just dopey again. And then when they're carrying out the guy on the stretcher, and Kirk says, "Oh, the Zion bodies are piling up so fast we have to haul them out in the street or something dumb like that." As he's walking by, and you're just like, "Come on!"
It's like the Germans are portrayed. They're not Germans actually. The Nazis are portrayed as so stupid. It's like, how could you?
Because they're go ahead.
Well, no, just I'll just leave it there. They're portrayed as
because they're not really Nazis. The problem with it is trying to make this believable is a serious problem, because all they are alien, other planetary creatures or humanoid looking things that it's like a cosplay convention. They're not, the Nazis of this world were truly brainwashed and truly evil. And there's nothing that was evil enough about John Gill, to really convince anybody. So they're walking around these Dunder, they're just wearing the outfits, but they're not really, I don't think they didn't really have a Holocaust there, or,
Well, this was the Holocaust. They even talk about the final solution, and the Zions or
Yeah, but
Zayons
did
are
they
just
kill 3 million?
stand-ins for Zions, i.e., Jews.
Right. Right.
Did
You
they
know?
reference killing them, by the millions?
Well, they
Yeah,
were going to.
well, that's why they launched that thing to destroy them.
Well, that's what I mean. Then, and it should have been handled. There shouldn't have been any sort of ham-fisted humor or any of that.
Right.
For me, I mean, it should have been. They should have made the decision right from the get-go for this to be one of the most serious Star Trek episodes of all time, if not the.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of what Nazi Germany really represented.
Sure.
And it was only 20 years past the war when they
I
showed.
know. For them to be joking and then they karate chopping a guy to get his uniform and all this and that.
Jimmy Doohan lost his finger at D-Day.
Yeah.
He fought the Nazis.
I know.
Gene Roddenberry had combat missions. He fought the Nazis. Gene L. Kuhn was a Marine. He fought them.
And even when Spock says to Shatner or Kirk, he says, you make a convincing Nazi. Even that joke. It's just not, I don't know, man. In the context of what we know about Nazi Germany, I didn't think making light of it in any way, shape, or form was the way to go with this episode. And then I do think you hit upon something even deeper than we know with the Biden reference, because Biden, what he represented by opening the borders and how he wasn't really in control of anything, that it was his team, his administration around him was running the show.
Well, we don't know that. It's a shadow government, whatever it was.
It was fucking bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact that they're all communists, I mean, that whole administration is filled with them. And so this sort of really rings true, and it kind of paints a picture of what what has been going on in a way.
Yeah, it is interesting in that regard, the similarities. I noticed that too. But getting back to one of the earlier points about Malakon, he's your villain, and we get him about for 5 minutes. It's like, why weren't they showing him, like Graham said, pulling the strings behind the scenes, or we get more of him and really set him up as this horrible bad guy? He's got the one doofy scene with Spock where he's like, notice the low brow and unintelligence. And, you're just like, it just feels like they could have done something more serious. If this
I agree.
If it had been a first season episode, I think this would have been a totally different.
I think no doubt about it. Let me just address something here to Comic Book and Coots. Scotty lost his finger in an accident on D-Day. Well, not technically, no. It was combat. But it was friendly fire. But he was still in combat, and bullets were flying, and it just happened to be that the friendly fire ended up taking off his finger. But
what I heard is he was in Japan.
I knew.
No,
caught his finger in a rice picker.
Yeah. Well, I thought there was a "love you long time" joke coming out.
No, I wasn't going to go there.
Okay.
He lost his finger inside a.
I thought that's where you were going, man.
Nope. But I was going to say, like, in City on the Edge of Forever, it was a whole, that whole thing about Nazi Germany, but there it was treated very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like how if she doesn't die, we're, the entire world is fucked, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how, and so here they go to a planet and it's imitating Nazi Germany, but it just I don't feel like it really pulled it off. The real sense of urgency and doom and even if they did talk about the final solution on that, they should have really played on that more.
Yeah, yeah, they should have.
Maybe Kirk and Spock go and interrupt, and save these people from a gas chamber or something. Something,
or a disintegration chamber, whatever it would have been.
Right.
Well, you brought up another good point, Graham, in your opening when you kind of compared this to this is the Nazi Germany version of A Piece of the Action. I mean, Piece of the Action was fun, and there was never anything really at stake, and so you had the jokes and everything worked really, really well.
Yeah,
this seemed like a surface level treatment of a real heavy subject.
Agreed.
And it still has that and it was like a novelty that never got beyond being a novelty. And
Yeah, and it
I
became
still like
actually,
the episode because of that, but I also see the gaping holes in it and how it could have really been something if they
Yeah.
had.
I'll go even farther and say it actually got kind of boring in the third act.
Oh, absolutely, it got boring. The whole idea of them coming in with the camera crew and the
Yeah, I was
lights.
like, what was
It
that?
was like, this
they
is
just
an
all
Abbott
saw them.
Costello thing,
There wasn't even an announcement that they broke out of their cells. Where was
Right.
there?
Yeah.
Not
Where did
really.
these prisoners go? They just
Yeah.
broke out. The thing was burned out, and then there's no reference to
And
that.
Kirk's filming her like 2 inches from her face. So it's like you got a close up of her eyeball. It's like, dude, at least act like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And they're coming
And
in
they
with
let
the
this
lights,
guy
showing
direct
the
Star
lights
Trek
in the face
5.
of the guards.
Yeah. There was just a lot of silliness in it that
It's funny is if I look at like McCoy in this one got to wear the costume, whereas in the piece of the action, remember how I was saying how I bet you DeForest Kelly was pissed he didn't get to wear the gangster outfit, so they put him in the Nazi outfit.
Yeah. Well, actually, I kind of like that scene where he beams down. He can't get the boot on. Spock directs him on how to do it. He stamps his foot and he stands up, and then he looks around and he goes, "What the heck is going on here?"
Yeah, he goes, "What is that?"
It's like he was so focused on getting dressed that he wasn't pulling in the entirety of his situation, and then all he's like, "What's going on?"
It reminds me of in the motion picture when they first beam him up and he's like this holding on to himself, and he's like relieved that the transporter worked, kind of reminds me of that.
Mm-hmm. But again, you've got a episode that had a lot of good bits in it that maybe weren't really appropriate for what the overall story was, but they were good bits in and of themselves. And so I'm going to have a hard time. I'm going to have a hard time ranking this when we get there.
One of the other things that bother me here is that the idea that in the 23rd century that this historian who is a storied historian who taught at the academy somehow has some reverence for the National Socialist Party, knowing what we know now, let alone in the 23rd century. But maybe that's it. Maybe history, repeats itself because people forget about it. And this guy thought, well, Nazi Germany was organized. Okay, yeah, trains ran on time, but they forgot the murder. They forgot the horrible stuff. They forgot the racism.
Well, they focused on stuff again, the cosplay aspect of it. Nazi Germany, if you'll give them anything, it's that their fashions and their designs and their planes and their tanks were cool as hell. They were really cool to look at, like the Stuka dive bombers. What a cool shape to them, you know what I mean? Or and the Nazi outfits.
Well, German design is, German steel, German design was renowned even before the war. This tiny little country, the smaller than Texas, came this close twice to taking over the world.
Isn't this a great example, though, getting back to modern times, of like this socialism or communist mindset where, we know it's never worked, but it's only because the right people, they haven't done it the right way. And so here's John Gill with that same sort of mindset, right? Yes, Nazism works, but they just did it. They had the wrong people in charge.
And still doing that to this day. What do you think, Bernie Sanders? The social.
Yeah, exactly.
They keep thinking it's going to work,
right? If it's done the right way,
sounds good, and they use it for politics because there's so many people out there preys upon the victimhood mentality. It preys upon people who really are kind of just want things done for them. Laziness, it's like they promise them rainbows and free food and all these things, and that's not the nature of the world. It's not the nature of this planet.
It's not the nature of human beings, period.
No, it's not.
The leader principle that Kirk talks about, that Anthony Mark is talking about here, that the Fuhrer is the top and that he leads everything. and that there, he sets all leadership comes from that top, is exactly what was the weakness of the German army in World War II. At the beginning of D-Day, whereas like U.S. military, you have levels of command, and if the higher up gets killed, and no matter how far down, the corporal can make the decisions. If all the leaders are killed ahead of him, the Germans, they had to call back to Berlin if they wanted to fortify the beaches. They knew stuff was happening. They were calling up there, and it wouldn't get to the Fuhrer for that final decision, and that was a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And yet John Gill is talking about it and using it to prop up the society.
Well, but he wasn't, I don't think, was going forward with the idea that they'd be at war. I mean, that's obviously when you're in battle, that's the worst case scenario. But oh God, what's the word starts with a B? Someone who's a ruler that's helpful to the people.
Benevolent?
Huh?
Benevolent?
Yes. A benevolent dictatorship is the best form of government. The problem is you can't get a benevolent dictator. And that's, I think John Gill was looking at it, right? Was like, if you had a benevolent dictator that was only going to do the good for everybody and didn't have any self-interest, and that will work, but to be stupid enough to think that that's possible, and yet we still have people today that think it's possible. So
that ignores normal,
right?
human desires.
You guys ever see Norm Macdonald's bit?
Yes,
probably. Which one are we talking
about? I don't know. I mean, everybody's going on and on about the Middle East, but you know what country really scares me is the country of Germany. I don't know how many of you are history buffs. There was a time when that Germany wanted to go to war, and who did they choose as their opponent? But the world.
The world. And they almost did it.
Yeah, and it was close.
Yeah, he had a bit. He was on Letterman where he goes, I've been doing a little research into this Hitler fella, and I can tell you right now, I don't care much for him.
Yeah. And then he goes on, he goes, so then we figured, we beat them, but then once again, Germany once again decides to go to war, and who again do they choose as their opponent but the world? World War II.
Yeah.
Now you'd think we'd say Germany, since on account of you keep attacking the world, freaking fun. I think it's one of my favorite comedy bits ever.
Me too.
So freaking fun.
Well, it is kind of funny. I mean, that's why they split up Germany at the end of World War II, right? They're like, we've had it with you guys starting world wars,
Well, no, it got split up because the Russians came in and they took part.
Mm-hmm.
They had to give ground to the Russians.
Well, because the Russians decimated them on their front.
Well, right, but that's still
Hitler didn't count on the weather in Russia.
Yeah.
And he kicked their ass, and that's what really won the war. It wasn't America. It was actually Russia. It was the ones that lost their women, children, men, everything. They put them all out in the front to fight.
Oh yeah, Russia lost 7 million people in World War II.
Germany went, instead of trying to get to Leningrad. Where did they go? They went
Stalingrad.
They went, and it just wiped them out because of the weather.
Yeah, but wasn't that going on about the same time that D-Day was, when they were storming Normandy? Wasn't it about the same time? So it was like there was too much going on too many fronts for Hitler.
Yeah, he had a 3-front war. He was in Italy, he was in Russia, and he was in France. He was in North Africa too.
Storming Normandy.
Storming Normandy. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, they took over a part of France and Belgium. Where was it? But anyway,
they had an agreement with Russia, and then all of a sudden Hitler reneged on it. You know, it's sort of like the Japanese. We were in negotiations with them while the ships were sailing towards Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
You know, what was interesting too was Winston Churchill. He was quite the little player. You know, he would say things to Stalin, you know, and to Hitler, like talking in each of their ears, trying to get them to you know, saying he said he's going to do this, like he was playing two ends against the middle.
Right.
You know, so he was a smart guy, and he was really kind of the one that drew. You know, besides Pearl Harbor, he also was kind of the one making deals with America to get America involved. It was all about economic reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, Roosevelt was fighting against the interventionists, you know, or the non-interventionists, you know, because there's a lot of people that didn't want us in the war,
right?
You know,
but it was going to happen one way or another.
Yeah,
you know?
And we were sending material over to England prior to that, and prior to that, we were over in China, you know, fighting the Japanese with the AVG.
Once that bomb happened, that was it.
Yep. Well, that's the interesting thing. How many fleeing Jewish Germans came to the United States and actually were responsible for taking down Germany? If those people had been not allowed to leave Germany, your scientists and all the stuff that was going, I mean, got a lot of brilliant people came out of there that helped the United States win the war.
Think of it this way, though, you know, all the technology, you know, like actually Germany was playing around with jet fighters before anyone.
Yep.
They had, you know, I remember there were reports like the fighter pilots were testing out their jets.
Yeah.
And
they had the V2 rocket.
That's what I mean, the V2.
Yeah.
And they were, you know, and the American fighters were like, what the hell? There's no propellers on those things. And but it's a whole different can of worms when you pull out the biggest card of all, which is a nuclear bomb. You know, and it just vaporizes, you know, entire, I mean, that was it.
I think
who the hell's gonna attack you now?
Right. I mean, well, I think the creation of Captain America also helped a little bit turn the tide. And also a German scientist that helped create the formula for him. So
yes, Professor Reinman.
Yes. Just saying.
I told you we'd veer off the show again.
Well, we're talking about comics, so that's close.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, World War II has a lot to do with this episode, so you know it's important stuff.
Yes, it does, but not enough.
No, not nearly enough in this episode.
Again, I feel like
we're working on a nuke. That's true.
Yeah, they were.
We had more natural resources. We were able to get the plutonium faster.
Yeah, just like it was Doc Brown had trouble getting plutonium.
I got some the other day, but I paid a lot. So,
yeah,
you know.
Well, you know those. Who was it? The Back to the Future. Who did you get who were the Middle Eastern guys that were trying to kill him in Back to the Future?
Yeah, in the parking lot.
Yeah, he got the plutonium from them, and they came back because he stole it from them. Who was that? It wasn't. I don't know if it was actually a real country or because it was not like they said, "Oh, the Iranians" or something, but it was the Libyans. There it is. Thank you. Fiction method. The Libyans.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest modern spy stories was revealed recently within the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, as the Iranians are trying to get weapons grade plutonium. You know, they have a centrifuge. And what the CIA did was they put a bug into their computer system that would make their centrifuge turn at the wrong speed, so that it never got the uranium to the grade that it needed. And it frustrated the shit out of these guys for years. It's like, why the hell can't we get this uranium? And it put their program back for decades. And I just thought that was brilliant. You know, they put this little bug in there. It's something you know.
It's funny how they couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they weren't as smart as they thought they were, huh?
Clearly not. Not as smart as you, Aaron.
Okay, Ron.
Ron.
The Patriot said, "Fun fact, the first Godzilla in 1955 was based on the United States dropping the A-bomb."
Yeah, we knew that.
Another fun fact, it's also based on Ray Bradbury's tale, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Which I still haven't seen.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best of the Harryhausens.
I gotta see it. I know.
It is the best of the Harryhausens.
Yes. See, Harryhausen made the U2.
I wasted my time watching Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, but I should have been watching The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Giant Tigro Presti.
Yeah. It's even talking, it's even got radiation that's killing the soldiers and stuff. It's so cool.
It was the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Why do they all talk like that? Like they've got high blood pressure and hemorrhoids.
Sequin Schul Artist for $5 says U.S. comics and Star Trek have helped save humanity from itself.
And we're all part of it. We all contributed to that. Jimmy Owens says that this has become a World War II episode more than the Star Trek one.
Yeah.
We've produced a better in 30 minutes or 45 minutes. We produced a better World War II episode.
Hey, is Shatner going kind of leftist these days?
I can't figure out what he's doing. He'll make like
he makes these comments.
Yeah, based comments, and then he'll say just incredibly leftist things, and you're just like, I don't know what he's doing.
Like environmental stuff, he goes left. It seems like,
Well, he said once he went up into space, he looked down and looked out and just saw blackness, and then he just saw the Earth, and he's like, even though he played a guy going out in space, he said he realizes we're never leaving here.
I saw that, yeah,
and that he got this moment of awareness of how we're not taking care of the place we actually live. But he said something else recently the other day that was very on the other side that I thought he was too. Can't remember what it was though.
I didn't see anything, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he was interviewed on, was it CNN? No, Fox. Somebody had him on.
Oh yeah, wasn't he on Jesse Waters?
Yeah, that's what I saw him, but I can't remember what they were talking about. Something about Trump buying Canada or something, maybe was what the.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Oh, what did he say?
What it was. He said something about Canada.
Well, I can't remember. But I was like, sounds to me like he's leaning liberal now, or going leftist or whatever. So I don't know that he knows. He's very confused, Ron. You scared him, and he has not returned to form since that time.
Yeah. Did you ever see that show of his? And this is one of my favorite things he ever did was Raw Nerve.
Yeah, where he was interviewing people. I love the episode. It wasn't Raw Nerve, but he was on Tyson's Tyson, he was being interviewed by Tyson.
Mike Tyson?
Yeah, Mike Tyson got pissed at him.
Oh.
Mike Tyson was interviewing somebody?
Was interviewing William Shatner. Tyson was doing a podcast with another guy.
Oh, I was going to say someone had to be helping.
Shatner was the guest, and Mike Tyson got annoyed with Shatner and started looking at him, like really staring at him like he wanted to punch him in the face because Shatner kept interviewing him. And he kept trying to dig into.
Yeah, well, that's what he does, and that's what made Raw Nerve so good. But one of the episodes he had Rush Limbaugh on, and it was amazing. I mean, Shatner, he's a thinking guy. He definitely, he's existential in his thoughts sometimes, and but he tried to get Rush to say something, and Rush was having none of it. Because Rush was extolling some of the things of conservatism, and Shatner goes, well, the Democrats want that too, and he goes, no, they don't. Yeah, well, yes, no, they don't. He just kept shutting them down, and then he explained why they don't, and it was like a kid going to school. It was so great. Rush was so great.
Well, he had zero interest in interviewing me at all.
He didn't want to deep dive into you?
He didn't even want to,
What is that?
Scraping the surface
Who
wasn't
is
even
he?
hard.
Who is this?
Who is he?
Who is this? Who is
You're not sitting on the couch. You're sitting on the couch.
this?
Don't get on your knees.
And now you're kneeling. It's almost like the cartoon from like the Burgermeister from Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Poison Samba Town.
Oh man. Well,
Yeah, but Ron, you know what? I
Ron.
don't think you could
Yeah,
bust.
but Ron.
I don't think you could bust those boards that were flaming
No,
in Circus of the Stars.
especially not with that laser beam focus that he had looking at
Right.
that stupid headband he was wearing.
And his gi gets all on fire. He's like,
Well, wasn't it like it was like a thing was it a gi or was it the thing he was wearing with Miramani or something?
yeah. It was more like a kimono, really. It looked more like a kimono.
It was so ridiculous, because he took it so seriously. He comes out on stage and the audience is all quiet with anticipation, and it's the thing's on fire and he's staring at it. And then he goes over and punches it and catches his arm on fire.
Miramani.
It doesn't go all the way through.
Oh,
Right.
He's got like 3 boards left.
oh, God.
And then he's like this, like
Yeah. Circus of the Stars.
Yep.
Circus of the Clowns.
I just feel like Shatner is one guy that quite frequently took himself a little too seriously.
You think Shatner took himself too seriously?
On more than one occasion, yes. That's a prime example of what I'm talking about.
Somebody just brought up Celebrity Bowling. I saw that one too, and he gutter bowled it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, there was a woman who went right before him, who was some actress from a TV show, and she let like a strike or something. And then Shatner goes up, and he thinks he's so charismatic,
Yeah.
And he goes up, and then when he takes the ball, he even kind of does that little Shatner step, like he's trying to be charming. And the freaking thing just goes right into the.
Oh boy. Poor Bill. Poor
Rick,
Bill.
what are you asking me? Still trying to figure out how Ron is what?
I know.
Shatner played a Limbaugh type radio talk show hosting
I'm trying
a
to figure
Columbia
out Ron.
movie. Nobody puts Limbaugh in a corner. Anyway,
Well, there's certain guys you don't want to debate, and I would think Rush Limbaugh was one of those guys.
Yeah.
oh yeah. My old roommate from college had dinner with him in Florida at his place in Florida. And he said that they got into a huge argument over something. I mean, I don't remember the story, but he just said that Limbaugh flipped out and then mentioned him on his show, mentioned my roommate on his show because he was embarrassed that he got so mad at my roommate. It was something over politics, obviously.
Okay. Here's William Shatner.
Shilliam Watner.
In the spirit of Bruce Lee, one of the most popular stars of TV and films will actually break solid pine boards with his bare hands. Ladies and
Brooke
gentlemen,
Shields?
Trekkies everywhere.
Is that Brooke Shields?
Star Trek II, Mr. William Shatner.
It is.
Very young.
Oh, so this was
He
just
walks out.
Trek 2. Star Trek 2.
And he's all of like 3 feet tall. Now look at him, he's all serious.
This is Johnny Gilbert at ring number 1. William Shatner is about to use his unprotected elbow to break those 2 solid pine boards.
Look at him. He's still staring at the boards like they're going to come back at him.
Ron, what do you think of his technique here?
Well, I think those pine boards are pre-split.
See the gaps? They have those risers in between, so it's those air gaps that make it possible to bust all those boards. You put 4 of those boards stacked without those gappers,
Yeah, because they
you
don't.
ain't breaking that.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's like trying to tear a phone book, right?
It's like physics and it's like a trick.
Here we go. Light it up in the spirit of Bruce Lee. I love that.
Here's the thing: you say
It looks like the Admiral's outfit he's wearing right from
Yeah,
there.
really.
it's like
Look
I
at
think
this.
that was Kirk's actual shirt.
What's with that headband?
That was so 80s. Oh, that's pretty cool.
And
If you're
now, stand back as we watch a razor-sharp
she is.
samurai sword test the metal of William Shatner.
Is that a cucumber?
It's a big phallic symbol.
He's thinking back to his Trelane episode.
He must have rehearsed this, What the hell is going on here? I didn't see
Can
this.
William Shatner actually cut those 2 cucumbers without slicing the hands of trainer Jonathan Yarborough? He can, and he did.
He's like a big Indian movie star. What the heck is he doing on this show?
It's the 70s, man.
No, it was it's early 80s because he said Star
that's
Trek,
true, that's
Star
true.
Trek 2. Should have been 81. Uh-oh. It's a pretty big cucumber.
This is unbelievable. Let's hope that all William Shatner is about to cut is the watermelon.
Unbelievable.
They should be applauding the guy who was brave enough to lay underneath, not him.
This.
Did you hear me? They should have been applauding the guy who was willing to let him almost kill him with a sword.
I have to say, on that last one with the watermelon, the guy's holding the watermelon like this. So Shatner only had to go like partially through because the guy went like that.
To snap it.
Yeah. He just to make sure he didn't have to go through and hit his chest. He goes through about halfway, uses and then the guy pulls it the rest of the way and busts it open.
Imagine if he just in that moment, for whatever reason, in an alternate universe,
Mirror.
He just went fucking crazy and sliced the guy right in half.
What if it was George Takei with the melon?
Oh,
You think he'd have gone all the way through?
maybe.
No, I think he would have cut a hole in it and fucked it.
Not Shatner. Takei.
That's what I mean, in the watermelon.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh gosh.
That's
Oh,
funny.
I know, that's dirty. Yuck.
All right. Speaking of dirty, let's get back to the Nazis.
What happened to Anna?
She must not have been able to make it work. So I think I saw her in the chat here. So maybe she can give us her score in the chat.
Anna, are you still there in the chat?
Yeah, if you're still in the chat, Anna, we're about to give our scores.
Anna Banana, where are you?
Aaron, what are you going to give this?
I want Ron to go first. I'm curious. I'm
Yeah,
waffling. I want to
You're
see.
wrong.
I want to see if someone can. I want to see if I'm on the same wavelength here.
All right.
Why?
All right.
don't
You know
know.
what? I never go first.
Yeah, you go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
5.5.
All right, and your reasons?
They're pretty much laid out in the in the captain's log. It's too small a story. It's too big a story for what we got. and outside the first act, it really falls apart. So there's some fun stuff, which is why I'm giving it above average, because it's still above average. It's watchable. It's kind of cool in some cases, but it's on the scale of Star Trek episodes, it's just above average.
Okay. That's
I can't forgive some of the stuff that they do.
Yeah, I would have to give it I'm going to go with you on that. I'll give it a 5, 5.5. They touch upon things in it like propaganda, like Nazi propaganda, when they basically claim they blew the Enterprise out of the sky, with the warhead. And the opening, when that warhead comes and the phasers, they blow it up.
It was a cool opening. It was
then they go down and they're watching and Shatner says, "That's funny. I don't recall." Or something like that. We're still here, or I don't remember.
Yeah. No, he said to Spock, he goes, "You look pretty good for a dead man," or something like that.
When the propaganda film ran.
Right. Yeah. So they touch upon some of the propaganda, and they, but it was all a bit disjointed. There's, misplaced comedy bits, that weren't. The jail scene just seemed too reminiscent of breaded circuses. All of it,
9.
Yes, they needed to drive the point. If they were going to do it, they needed to drive the point home and really get into it with some teeth.
Yeah.
That's a subject that they really needed to be serious with, the same way City on the Edge of Forever did, with lesser, the ramifications of it, of Edith Keeler staying alive versus dying. They really drove the point home of what that could mean. And here they had the golden opportunity to really explore that. And they blew it, just became a ham-fisted, episode on a Friday, Thursday, whatever night it was on.
Yeah.
That just didn't do anything for me. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Before I watched this again, I was thinking this is probably a 7.5. And then I watched it and I found so many spots in there that didn't work the way they should work. And then, and then the point that Ron just made, that it's just a very superficial treatment of a very heavy subject. But it still has a very high novelty score for me, which I do kind of like the novelty Trek episodes. So I'm going to go 6.5 on this. I still like it, even though I know I shouldn't. And I can even tell you why I shouldn't like it, but for some reason I still do. So 6.5.
Yeah. I think the things that we do like about it is that there's a sincerity of it in the actors. The revolutionaries. I buy them. They seem sincere. Maybe a bit too cartoony. All the characters. The Germans and everything were a little too cartoony, too one-dimensional. But the actors seem sincere.
Yeah, the one guy, the lead Zion Pig guy that was in jail with them, he was trying pretty hard. And I give him credit for that, because it's got to be.
He was trying pretty hard.
Well, no, I mean, you get some of these. I mean, you got to read the scripts and go, oh, come on, man. But
right.
You're like, it's a job, and I'm gonna, because you, just like any of us, have gotten crappy comic book scripts, and you kind of like maybe phone it in. They get crappy scripts, and it's tempting to go, why should I put any effort into this? As a piece of junk. But I thought the guy brought the effort, so good on him. But yeah, 6.5, I think. Okay. Enjoyable enough to watch, but not to take too seriously.
Everybody, and just because they're wearing the Nazi outfits, the aura wasn't there. It just wasn't believable enough. I said, if they had shown something with real implications of, the final solution or something that the Enterprise truly had to intervene on.
Yeah, it was like on that the one where they had the people had to walk in when they're fighting the war with computers, and they had to walk into the disintegration chambers. I mean, that was kind of heavy. They had nothing like that might have really given this episode some gravity.
And the Romans in Bread and Circuses were more dangerous and deadly than these Nazis.
Yeah.
You know, walking around with those little submachine guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they even touched upon the sun, the sun they kept talking about, and then they made a spiritual, religious.
Yeah, that had a lot more beef to it.
Yeah, added some gravitas to the whole shit. Once you learn that, the way I thought that was a perfect ending for that episode for her to.
I love that episode.
To say that she was listening in on the broadcast and that's what it meant. It really sort of opened your eyes up and underscored the whole episode and gave all the characters some real gravitas.
Right. That Bread and Circuses was a heavy episode, and they didn't, even at the ending, like you're talking about, where now they're putting in the little jokes all the time, or even with my son, the doctor, at the wrong time. That had a great ending because it was uplifting, but it was still very serious. You know, and it followed the tone of the episode. Where they had another joke at the end of this one, didn't they? It's like Mr. Spock, or
what would have been better?
It's out of orbit and hurry.
Yeah, quickly.
You know what would have been better in this is instead of just whipping them in a jail cell, how about them having to, them marching them to a gas chamber or something, or, really.
Or putting them in a concentration camp with other Zions.
With Hogan from Hogan's Heroes.
I see nothing.
With Colonel Klink.
Yeah.
Klink.
Well, Stippling, you can say that to Ron at New Jersey.
Come on, Ron.
Come on, Ron.
Yeah, Ron.
I love how you characterize me. That's funny.
It sounds exactly like you.
Come on, Ron.
Well, next week we got a good one. I think we have the M5 unit, the ultimate computer.
Dr. Distrom.
Dr. Distrom. I am great. You are great.
You're great. And the great thing about this episode is at the very last scene, he turns into Blackula.
Yes.
And it's just
yes, I'm stealing my work.
Yeah. I love him. I love William.
And I like when Spock neck pinches him, his reaction. He's like, he's
yeah.
like,
oh yeah, he pinches him. He's like,
I like when Kirk is trying to subdue him in front of the Jeffries tube, and he's like 6'4", and Shatner's like 5'3", and he's like, he's like trying to climb up and get his arms and pin his arms behind his back.
Oh, that reminds me, in this episode, there's a scene right when they were filming, and who's the guy who left the cell with them?
Yeah, the Zion.
The Zion guy. Well,
Zion.
He didn't have a name.
He did. It was
yeah, because his brother, he introduced him
his brother was Abram, which was like a stand-in for Abraham.
Right.
Isaac, it's a stand-in for Isaac, whatever that would be.
Right. Let's just say Isaac. So right after they, how they go up with the camera and they're filming, the two Nazi guards are there. Well, Spock neck pinches one, and then Isaac goes up and he just goes like this around his neck real softly, and the guy falls.
Oh yeah, it's like I thought did he stab him or something, but he grabbed him around the neck and he just collapsed. I thought, did he just shoot?
Yeah, it was so bad. It was like, stuff like that you can't let go. Come on. It takes 2 seconds. Show something a little more believable than just going, oh.
Yeah. Even if you took your gun butt, and
do something like that. Yeah, but don't.
Yeah, should have shivved him, man. Because remember, he goes, we're a peaceful culture, but I think I could kill. Start killing then, baby. I mean, he shot Malakon. Why not shiv the guard?
Yeah, and the guy's
wife. I had to slice his throat.
Yeah, blood just break his neck. When they do that kind of.
I would have brought my score up at least 2 points.
Yep.
Yeah, that would have been at least a 7. 7-5.
He sliced his throat.
Yeah.
With that sword that Shatner was using to cut the watermelon.
Yeah. You don't see it. You just see the blood spatter across the jail cell or whatever it was.
Right onto the camera lens.
Oh,
And then you
man.
see a hand come in and wipe it off.
Lynn Green says his name was David or David or David.
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 I'll tell you what it was.
I'm a fan of David, actually.
Davad, huh?
No, it's Isaac. I was right. It's
Isaac?
standing for Isaac. It's Isaac. Isak.
Okay.
Isaac.
Isaac and Abram.
Yeah. Those are the two brothers. Yeah. All right, gang. Thanks for everybody for stopping by and watching the landing party and putting up with our nonsense and fun.
Yeah, this episode, we're sorry we're a little low energy, but this episode was a little low energy for us.
Yeah, well, next week, as I said, we got the Ultimate Computer, Captain Dunsel, and all that fun stuff. So
I am great. You are great.
I'm great. You're great. What's his name? What's the actor's name? William. How am I drawing?
Yes,
Marshall. William Marshall.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
it, William Marshall. Love that guy.
Blackula and Scream, Blackula, Scream.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, crazily enough, he actually looks younger in Blackula than he does in this episode.
And you know who plays Dracula? Who turns him into Blackula?
Yeah, the prefect.
The prefect.
Yeah.
The prefect from
Wolf in the Fold.
Wolf in the Fold.
Yeah.
Well, that whole, remember we talked about that, how that episode had a Hammer film feeling to it.
Yes.
You know, the sets and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I love the Hammer films. They were great. It's just, there was such a mood to them, and that episode reminded me a bit of it. So that's interesting.
It was part Hammer, part blaxploitation.
Yep.
Yeah. I almost like the second one better. Scream, Blackula, Scream, where they got the mansion and all the big cop that was in Hill Street Blues is in it, and all the vampires in that mansion.
It's so long since I've seen it. I'm trying
we
to
should
remember.
we should have a
Pam
special,
Grier.
Yeah, Pam Grier
we
was
should
in
have
it.
a special landing party viewing episode where we watch something like that, and we watch bits of it so we can keep it from you getting flagged. But we can watch bits of it like that instead of Star Trek. You know, we'll like watch a movie like that. That would be fun.
Yeah, something that's like Star Trek adjacent.
Like,
Like,
something that we connect to Star Trek. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All the actors that have spun off from Star Trek have all been in bad movies since.
Yeah.
We'd have to find Angelique Pettyjohn's porno.
Yeah. Well, if we could find some of this stuff that is actual public domain, we could do a watch party.
That's what I mean. We could do something like that. That would be fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll do it we'll do that as a special episode. Like,
Yeah, like a Friday night episode or something.
Yeah, why don't we do that soon? We could watch Blackula or something.
No, we can't because that's not public domain.
What would be public domain?
We'd have to find out. You'd have to.
Terror of Tiny Town.
Yeah.
The all midget western.
Yeah, you're not going to find anything like that. But isn't there a way you can cut in bits of it? You know,
it's dangerous because after a while they get you eventually because you have it on too long.
It's no fun to watch little teeny clips like that.
20 seconds and then clip it.
You know, it'll take you 6 hours to watch the whole damn thing.
Well, how about we're like this and then there's a TV behind me, and it just happens.
And you just move your head. We make you full screen.
Move your head over, and there's William Marshall.
Well, I'll do some research, see what I can find, see what we could do.
That sounds good.
Now we should watch that Captain Marvel serial where he uses the machine gun and blows everybody away.
Oh yeah, we throws guys off the roofs and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the worst movie ever made? It's so bad it's good, and it's called Hercules, starring Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, I've seen clips of it.
I'm aware of it.
It's so bad it's good. It's so entertaining because it's so freaking horrible.
I wonder if that's public domain or
And
Does anybody even care? Even if it isn't, you know.
true.
Didn't Schwarzenegger do a Hercules movie too?
Hercules,
Hercules
comes
in
to
New
New
York.
York. Yeah. And he was dubbed.
Oh, yeah.
So was Ferrigno.
Oh, was he? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Ferrigno's deaf, so he's like, "Woo," you know. Don't want to make fun of the poor guy. but-
Aaron.
well, come on, it's true. I mean, I'm just
Come on, Aaron.
yeah. Wrong.
Oh man.
That's not you. That sounded like a foghorn. Wrong.
What was that Shatner movie? Kingdom of the Spiders.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kingdom of the Spiders.
oh,
Yeah,
and
or that other one where the Devil's Reign.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. And Ernest Borgnine was in that, wasn't he?
Yep.
Was he one of the Satan worshippers?
Yeah, he ends up turning out with the
Yeah, I
horns and
remember
everything.
seeing Shatner was up on a thing, like tied up or something.
Yeah, and his eyeballs were missing.
Oh, were they? Oh,
Yeah, because that's what happened to all the people in the devil, that come to the devil thing. It's like their eyes are missing. It's like these black holes.
They also did they filmed that movie, Incubus or Succubus, one of those two, and it was filmed in Esperanto.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That sort of hybrid English Spanish language. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. Shatner's like, "Hola, ¿qué tal?" But he's doing this. No idea what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
oh,
Hola.
Oh, but you know what? Maybe we could do that. What was that Shatner pilot that he did?
Oh,
Roman
Alexander
thing.
the Great.
Yeah, Alexander the Great.
It's on YouTube, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's on
no!
YouTube.
Did you ever see the one where he talks about he plays the lawyer or something? He's like, "Can you show me the way to Niggatown?"
Oh yes, the Intruder.
Yeah, the intruder. That's it.
Yeah, he's really good in that.
Is that black
Yeah.
and white
Yeah, it's a Roger Corman film.
when he still cared? He's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
trying to
He was
form his
making a
career.
serious social commentary, and he has Shatner playing this racist race baiter that goes into this town, and it's actually quite good.
Hmm. I see all kinds of possibilities. Something's got to be public domain that we can have a good time with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
All right.
we definitely.
We're on
gotta-
it. And you guys in the chat, do some homework too. See if you can
Yeah.
come up with something that's public domain
Help
that
us out.
has a Star Trek adjacent cast member, whatever. Be cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next week for the Ultimate Computer. And hopefully, Anna's computer will be working then.
Come on.
Come on, Ron.
Come on.